we are great even in the moments in which we are the most human. When we're flawed, when we feel imperfect, when we feel like we've hit rock bottom, when we feel like we're stuck and there's like nowhere to go, nowhere to look, like we feel confined by the walls that we've built with our careers and our intentions, and we feel stuck in that. Like that's okay.
I am so excited to announce the launch of an innovative new product from Vista Apex Solutions called the Endocator. The Endocator is the first ever chair-side device that actually allows you to verify and test whether your canals are clean before you obturate. Utilizing ATP as a biomarker, this device is able to let you know that the canals are clean before finishing a case. How valuable is that? Visit Vista Apex Solutions at vistaapex.com to learn more about the Endocator. Because remember, you can't see clean on an x-ray. Welcome back to On the Cusp. I'm your host, Dr. Brett Gilbert. Super excited to be here in this moment at this time with this very special guest, a return guest, Paola Ucelo, who's been here before, actually for a two-part episode. And she's someone very, very special to me. I would describe her as an oracle, a guide. She sits at the altar of others opening themselves and finding the beauty, the incredible nature that's inside. She herself is someone that works in such a deep level with other people and herself. And she's someone who has helped me in such a powerful way as my coach, as my guide, through incredible depths of work that I've been really excited and open to do for myself, on myself, for the benefit of learning more about who I am, learning more about how I can become and grow into the best version of myself. And so Paola has an innate ability to, see from high above and be able to help just guide. And so I highly recommend, checking her out. She's also an incredible designer. She has done t-shirts. She does kimonos. We'll get into all of that. But I want to introduce Paola Ucelo. I want to say that if you're here, if you're listening to this episode, there's a reason, because every time I'm with Paola, there's such an intention and magic behind it. And so I know in co-creating this episode, something beautiful is going to come out of it. And if you're here listening, it's intended for you. So Paola, welcome back to On the Cusp.
Thank you, Brett. Oh my goodness. You just hearing you and being in this space with you just emanates so much joy, so much gratitude. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And, I was, obviously we stay in contact. We've done so much, intimate work together, but you recently published an article that really got my attention on Conscious Beast. And it was something that I had been thinking about in different ways, and something that really this podcast is premised on, which is kind of finding that fulfillment in life, kind of seeking out and finding what your greatness is. And you wrote this article about the path to greatness. So with that being said, I'm going to open the table to you. Talk to us a little bit about this, and let's just see where the conversation flows from there.
Beautiful. Yes, this concept of greatness is something that I feel has been really unfolding. It unfolds for every single one of us, like through every single phase of our lives. And the moment that this article came through, it was literally sitting down, like on the couch, on my journal, and it just flowed through so powerfully. And I always say that when transmissions and that come through, there's so like less, not much of me, and so much of spirit and so much of that divine transmission and orchestration that's here to not just remind me, but also to get to share a message that really invokes so much truth and so much authenticity from all of us. And this actually happened when this article came through. It was at the beginning of this year. And at the beginning of this year, I made a massive transition from living in Mexico to moving back to the United States, which is something that I hadn't lived here in Arizona for a decade. So it was something that it was a massive shift. And I know that it's not something that I have gone through myself. I know that we all move through such massive phases in our lives that we can see it as, okay, a 3-year period or a 5-year period or a 10-year period. that we dive in so deeply within ourselves and we explore different things and we unveil so many gifts and truths within ourselves. And then it's time to integrate it. And so when it was time to integrate a whole new way of being, to receive this transmission of greatness and this reminder that regardless of where we are on our journey, we were born, made, and refined for greatness. And so this here, in this article, it starts off with you were born, made, and refined for greatness. Now, it's important to acknowledge that this greatness spoken of is meant to be divinely architected and designed to be different, not only for each individual, but this greatness will unfold and refine for you over time. Here, it is essential to remember that my greatness will look different than yours, and yours will look different than mine, and yours will look different at age 3, 17, 26, 33, 49, and so on. You must know that you will be great as you already are in this moment. So, as we dive into this concept of greatness, to you, what does it mean to be great? And how would you define greatness? This is a really important piece to get to identify how it is that we define greatness. How do we define authenticity? How do we define truth? How do we define wisdom? How do we define that of which is within our hearts? Because the way that we define greatness will inevitably catapult us into creating a reality of what greatness is. And the society that we live on, the society that has been built that is now crumbling, as we know. Um, the idea of greatness is this end goal, right? At one point, I will be great, rather than really going in within ourselves, discovering what it is that is true within our hearts, and being able to identify wait, if I just take out all of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, all of the external expectations, and I just sit here with myself, knowing that I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, that I'm here to heal, that I'm here to learn how to be the truest version of myself. What does greatness actually mean?
Hmm. Powerful,
Mhm.
powerful. You know, just to bring it back to where you started, which was talking about you were journaling and spirit in essence we are a channel. We can channel a message, we can channel energy. And I've often had this because I'm sort of self-answering this question to you, but I've
Please.
sort of I've sort of had this download that like in reality, like our physical bodies are like hardware, right? But who we truly are and all of what is behind us and within us is like, coming up from the cloud, right? Like we are the physical manifestation, and this physical body, this ego structure, this personality has certain parts of it meant to sustain and protect it that can also get in the way of some of the messages and
Mm,
what our true software is really, out in space. And so to me, as I've kind of distilled the question is like, how can I free and surrender those physical traits, the mental, the thoughts, the emotions, all the things that create my personality structure? How can I in some way either come to peace with them, quiet them, but allow myself to receive the true messages unfiltered that would allow me to be, as you said, the unique greatness that I should be or could
mm,
be or maybe. Or maybe part of the journey is that some people can touch into their greatness in this lifetime and others can't. And that struggle exists. And so is there work we can do? Is there reflection? Is there exercises? Like what can we do in essence to get out of our own way and let
mhm,
our greatness channel through? And I've given a lot of thought to that sort of concept, that there's certain built-in barriers to letting this light shine through us, to letting us, follow the interests, the passions, the things that light us up. And you've been a great support to me as a coach in recognizing that some of my professional, and of course, with the audience being lots of clinicians and students and residents, how does that professional choice and what it requires us to do sometimes be a block and not allow the truest nature and this and the greatness to flow through. So just funneling some of that through, because I
Mhm,
think I believe that I've touched more into what my unique greatness is in the work that
mhm,
we've done together. And a lot of that was simply shedding and really recognizing that it's all there. It's just what can we do to get the windows cleaned, right? Get all the muck off of it so that we
mhm,
can
mhm,
shine it outward.
mhm, mhm. This what you're sharing, it reminds me of I'm not sure if I shared this with you, the story of the Golden Buddha.
But please tell it. I
And
know the exact
yeah.
story. And you're right. That's it. That's it. So please, it's amazing.
So the story of the Golden Buddha is that back thousands and thousands of years ago, there was a group in a village of Thai monks who would worship this Buddha. It was the Golden Buddha, and they would bring offerings, flowers, and prayers to that, like to the Buddha's altar every single day. And that is where they went to pray. That is where they went to meditate. That is where they went to amplify their healing powers. And then came the invasion. And when the invaders came, what they did is that they wanted to protect this golden Buddha so badly that they covered it up with clay. And when they covered it up with clay, they kept it like that. They were able to protect it, right? The invaders completely looked past it because what they were doing is that they were seeing all of their gold and melting it and then taking it, right? And so they saw this clay Buddha and they're like, it's not shiny enough. We're just gonna keep on walking. And they kept it like that. They were able to protect it. They were able to preserve it. Years went by and they began to build. The temples began to rise again. And so they had built this brand new temple for this Buddha. And the thing is that so many years have gone by that there was a whole new generation that had learned to worship this clay Buddha, that they had no idea what it was, the origin of it, the nature of it, the greatness of it. And so they worshiped it. Still, they brought offerings to it. And when it was time to transfer it, the clay began to crack. And this new generation of monks, some of them were like, "Oh my God, no, 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 no. Like, we gotta keep it together, keep it together." And there was this, wise elder monk who said, "Let it crack." And then it began slowly to crack. The pieces were falling. And as the pieces fell, there was just light beaming through every single crack. So you can imagine it, right? It's just like really, I really invite you guys to like connect to this visual of this clay falling and this light just penetrating and emanating all the way out. And then came the point where there was a golden Buddha. And all of these monks were completely blown away. They were like, "Oh my God, this whole time there was gold underneath all of this clay." And I share this because this is so much of the journey that we move through in our lives as we unveil our greatness, unfold and refine in our greatness. And a very important piece here is that, you mentioned some people will experience their greatness, some people will not. And I desire to challenge that. I want to challenge that idea because the idea that some will and some won't can often be based on what greatness is supposed to look like. The golden Buddha is still great in clay. And I feel that that's one of the most important things that I would share can support has supported me and can support all of you that are listening, that are here with us to begin to unfold more into what that greatness is a deep sense of self-acceptance.
Mm.
Like a really powerful, beautiful homecoming of, even though within my heart I desire to grow and know that I can expand, I know that I have so much potential and things that I want to create, ways that I want to experience myself and my life, to give yourself an opportunity to see yourself as is right now and see the greatness of who you are. See the greatness of who you are, not because of the title that you hold or the accolades that you might have achieved or the any of these like external things, but rather can you accept the greatness that lives in your presence and the greatness that lives in your desire to be of service in such a beautiful present way? Can you see the greatness of, when I think of clinicians, I'm like, y'all are healers. Like you all are healers in this modern concrete jungle, right? Like there's a deep sense in your heart and your soul that said, I am going to choose this either one, because yo, it's gonna make money and it's let me get
So,
that DR in front of my name, please. That's big in this society. And also, I want to help people.
mhm.
I desire to be with another individual and support them and feeling better and doing better and coming out of the door feeling much better than they did when they first came in. Can you see the greatness in that? So much of the old paradigm or the misconception and the distortion of greatness is that, I feel like we oftentimes, and I say we, with my hand up, ask me how I know, is that there's this misconception around. You could just think about it. Like we look back in history and like who were the great, the ones who conquered everything and everyone,
Mm.
right? Like if we just historically, greatness has been of conquering outside of self, places, people, cultures. If you manage to conquer all of that, then you will be great. And so the challenging of all of this is saying, what if great is those and that of which conquers the world inside and can really see the visual that's coming through. It's like if we just take that visual of like conquering outside of ourselves and we go within and we see these different countries and villages and things and people and experiences and moments that live inside of us and get to like get the juice from all of that, then we can see more of our greatness. And I know that what I'm sharing here are not specifically practices per se. However, I want to invite you all into this energetic invitation to feel into the truth that in this moment you are great because of who you are, because of your heart. Like for those of you that are listening, you might be in your car driving somewhere. Perhaps you're in your house and you're doing things around the house, or maybe you're in full presence listening to this. I invite you to look down. Well, not if you're driving, keep looking forward. If you're driving, keep looking at the street. uh, look ahead. Um, take a deep breath and simply acknowledge yourself. What you've experienced, what you've moved through, the lives that you've impacted. You are great. One of the greatest your heart and your soul has ever seen. So, first things first, we can do all of the practices, we can do all of the, strategies and buildings of how to move our legacies forward and that of which we feel is the path to greatness can do all of that. And if it's doesn't come from a foundation of I am great as I am here for the heart that I have and the way that I express my joy and my passion and my truth, we have to accept and be compassionate and recognize the greatness of who we are through all of it.
Hmm.
The last thing I'll say here is that there's this um, repeating message that comes through for me, and it's that it's important for us to be reminded of our divinity in the moments in which we are the most human. And we can take this into here and saying it's important for us to remember our greatness. We are great even in the moments in which we are the most human. When we're flawed, when we feel imperfect, when we feel like we've hit rock bottom, when we feel like we're stuck and there's like nowhere to go, nowhere to look. We feel confined by the walls that we've built with our careers and our intentions. And we feel stuck in that. Like, that's okay. Bless you, your ambition, your passion. Look at what you've created. In that perhaps perceived cage or limitation that has been created. It is acceptance, compassion, and recognition of self that opens up the door and has us realize that even though we're in a room, it's still in a house of greatness. So I'll pause there.
Just honestly, as you all can experience and probably have before, if you've heard the other episodes, just so much wisdom. It's not just in the words and the energy, it's just in the expression. And I had said as we kicked this off, some may or may not find their greatness or achieve it or whatever it was that I had said. And I think after listening to what you just said, it's more of whether or not we'll acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I love about your article is you talk about how it's always changing. It's a dynamic situation. And so, just like you were saying, like if you can conquer your inner world and by conquer, I interpret it as accept it as it is. Cause when you look down inside that world inside of you and all of the experiences and some of the things maybe that have been done to you or you have done, which might have provoked trauma or pain or shame, what we're saying is that you're great just as is. You just where you are in this moment, accepting yourself, feeling at peace. And that's not easy to do. It's not it's at least from my experience. It's not easy just to look in at any moment and be like, "Wow, like I am great." But I think what Paula is trying to say is that that's what we should do. We should accept that where we are in this moment, the fact that we're here, we're all here for a reason. We're here and our seasons are going to change, our relationships are going to change. But the reality is that if we can accept ourselves for exactly who we are, doesn't mean we can't choose to make changes or, try new things or, let go of things that aren't serving us. But I think to your point, the greatness is just acceptance. And that is something that should be easy to do, but for many, myself included, for many years, not so easy to do. And that's where I think the benefit of a coach or a guide or someone that you can feel comfortable to express yourself to, because in expression comes all of the deep dark thoughts and feelings. And somehow, just like getting rid of the clay and letting the light shine out, sometimes the verbal expressions are more potent ways to sort of expel, but also to share and to show who we are, because something that might feel embarrassing or something that might feel X, Y, or Z, when you say it and then someone reflects back to you, you might have a totally different perspective on what you just said. And that I think is a great example of us being able to share who we are. You know, they say that our authentic self is our superpower, right?
Mhm,
So our greatness, our superpower is just simply being who we are. And to be that, we probably at first have to accept who we are
mhm,
internally. So I really love that, Paula, because I think we do spend a lot of time thinking about how we project outside of our skin to the world and spend not enough time how we project inside of our skin.
mhm,
Because that's the
mhm,
world that if we can master or at least learn to love, then we have a whole lot more that we can give.
mhm. So much more. So much more. I and I'd love to ask you, you mentioned it can be really challenging to accept ourselves, to see ourselves, to recognize ourselves, and you were so spot on that it's less about will we achieve our greatness, but rather will we recognize it. I feel like that's a really important piece here for myself, for us, for all of you that are for those of you that are listening. The path to greatness is less about will I achieve it and more about will I recognize it, which then prompts the question, why is it so challenging to accept, to recognize, to acknowledge, to be compassionate? Why do you think that is?
I personally think it's because, through life, we oftentimes internalize our shame, our guilt, our blame, our trauma. And much like how the monks put the clay over the golden Buddha, we
Mhm,
put our own clay over because it's a way of, if we've been hurt before, theoretically protecting ourselves from not being hurt again. And so I think what happens is we wind up bandaging, putting clay over ourselves in a way of, in some inherent way of thinking it protects us. But what it truly does is just, for the most part, just blocks, it puts up a barrier, right? We were talking about this a bit earlier. It
mhm,
took, puts up a barrier between our truest nature, our heart, our greatness, and the confidence, the openness, the vulnerability of sharing that fully, fully sharing it. Because if we did fully share it, probably the greatness would be much easier to acknowledge because we would be feeling that coming back to us. But a lot of times, and this pertains to a conversation I had just before we hopped on this recording, which is sometimes the barrier is self placed. And we don't
mhm,
understand why we're not getting the love back that we're feeling inside. And it's because we're not showing it. And
mhm.
so, like the wise old monk who had the intuition, wisdom, knowledge to say, let it crack. Let's see what's underneath.
Shoo!
That's what we need to do.
I wonder, to those of you that are listening, I wonder what that does to your body and the sensations that arise in simply being open to letting it crack and the thoughts that arise and the sensations that come alive. How long does it take for the mind to kick in and say, nope?
Usually.
Yeah, usually they say it takes 5 seconds. It takes 5 seconds for the mind to kick in and say, nope, we are not doing that. Remember what happened last time we were cracked open.
Yeah.
So when was that? Perhaps that was last week, yesterday. We think it was yesterday, but it was really perhaps 35 years ago, 40 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. When we came out of the house, came out of our room, super excited, wanting to share something, and then it got shut down. When you were young, unable to express what it was that you were feeling, Intense emotions were flowing through. You were told, "Why are you crying? Stop crying. We don't have time for this. Why do you have to be so loud? Just go to your room." We think it's what happened yesterday. We think it's that heartbreak that happened. We think it's that thing that fell through, but really, it's a perpetuation of what happened the first time. When that narrative got created, when that story began to be written, it is not safe to be me. So, what are those ways that we protect ourselves? We see, okay, well, my parents want me to be more quiet. Okay, well, my parents desire for me to be really successful. Okay, well, I can't rely on this, so I'm going to go ahead and take full responsibility for my life at the age of 7. There's a lot of chaos in my world. Parents are constantly fighting. I'm going to learn to be the peacemaker. And then I'm going to start self-abandoning, and I'm going to start shoving my truth down, shove it down, down, down. And I'm just going to be like, yeah, it's okay. Because I don't want to rock the boat. So it impacts us all differently, but it's all the wall. It's all clay that we end up putting like on ourselves at the end of the day. Karen's still flowing. And so in that, there's this inquiry that I want to invite us into, which is before that happened, what naturally moved you? You know, I'm a pretty chatty person. I can be very chatty. And I love to talk, and I could talk for hours. You know this, Brett. I could just go. I'm like, let's go with it. I've had a philosophical heart like since I was born. I've always just loved perspectives and people and cultures and just getting to learn the world, the universes that live within each soul and individual. And when I was little, I grew up in a martial arts family. And so we had the dojo. I literally lived, the house was behind the dojo. So I would just be doing homework, and then I would see people coming in and the parents dropping off their kids. And I would get excited because there was people I could go and talk to. And I would go and I loved talking with the adults specifically, and I would ask them what they did for a living. Were they single? Were they not? I tried to play a little matchmaker once or twice, which succeeded in my brother and his wife. I mean, they've been,
Wow.
together for like 25 years. Yes, you're
Wow.
welcome if you're
Nice.
listening. But so that was something for me that moved me naturally. People, their worlds, getting to know them, learning about life through them, through stories. And growing up, I lost that because I used to get in trouble all the time at school for talking too much, for asking questions that were challenging, especially growing up and going to a private Catholic school. So asking questions and being talkative, I was constantly being told that's not okay.
Hmm.
I mean, here where I'm now on a podcast talking it up, asking questions. I'm grateful for that, just coming back and recognizing and celebrating that of myself, right? And so I share this example as you also taking that inquiry within yourself. Before all of that, before all of these things were told to you, before that story began to be written of it's not safe or it's not okay, I need to protect myself from pain. What moved you? What were the environments? What were the things? What were the people, the moments that awakened joy, possibility, and inspiration for you? that's where it begins to crack. A moment of remembrance. We don't have to become someone new. We just get to return deeper into who we truly are and who we've always been.
Wow. Just give me chills here. Seriously. Yeah. I had that moment. That's why you just gave me total chills. Just taking me back through exactly what you're saying, which I learned about in my emotional intelligence training, which
Mhm,
is the self-limiting beliefs, right? A lot of it is absorbed through osmosis. A lot of it is being told you're too much, you're too this. You know, our scholastic system is essentially not built to promote thinkers, visionaries, and creators, but rather workers and people that will follow rules.
mhm.
And in my emotional intelligence training, I understood this point of stripping off these self-limiting beliefs, these bandages, right? They were
Mm.
referred to as rackets in this training, and just starting to
Well,
uncover and realize that I've completely coated myself in clay. And what you just said that gave me the chills was when you said a moment of remembrance, that you don't need to be someone else. You're just remembering who you truly are. And in meditation, I remember this vividly, and I still can feel it and see it in my mind right now. But I saw my 8-year-old self jump out of my chest and start dancing on my heart. And the energy and the spirit and the strength and the hope and the power of that 8-year-old that I saw dancing on my chest reminded me exactly who I was. And I remember, I tell this story a million times. I've probably told this story on the podcast 10 times, but I remember being about 8 years old and standing in my bedroom mirror, flexing my little, little boy muscles and thinking to myself, one day I'm going to be an adult. What am I going to look like? What am I going to act like? Who's going to be around me? And the reality is that it's that same 8-year-old boy. And if I can strip everything down and really look at myself from a light of my own greatness and acknowledgement, that's who I see. I see that exact same spirit that I saw dancing on my chest. So what you said was so on point for me personally, and I hope for the audience that it's in there, right? And that's why they talk about, your inner child and doing work, with your inner child. And B, if you're open to it and this conversation inspires you, that greatness is sitting right there. That true self is sitting right there. Now, might there be some work necessary to get down to it, and maybe something you can do on your own, maybe something you need some help with? Yeah. And if you need any guidance on that, hit me up, because I've gone through it, starting from a place of burnout, depression, anxiety, fear, and going through a process of, up till this moment, unpeeling, lifting layers off, finding out who I really am, letting go of things that don't serve me, but really with the goal of shining my light. So it's all there. The greatness is inside. And that's why Paula's article really resonated with me, because the beauty of it is there is no definition of it. You said what defines greatness, as part of the early discussion in the article. And the truth is there is no definition.
mhm,
It's just it's acknowledgement, acceptance, and the recognition that it might change in this minute to the
mhm.
next minute. And that's okay.
I just envision like what does greatness mean? And I just see like an 8-year-old being like, it's me. It's me. I
Yeah.
am, and there's I'd love to ask you a question and then share from there. What would you say, you mentioned like seeing yourself, 8-year-old, flexing your muscles, like on the mirror, and thinking like, wow, who will I become when I'm an adult? And now that that 8-year-old has you to see and can see you and witness you, what would he say?
Oh, I think a lot of pride, and I think a lot of admiration for, being true to who I was looking at the mirror in that day, which was, if I could distill it down to, it would just be someone that was here to help.
Mhm,
Someone who wanted to help. I just, how can I help you? How can I
mhm,
serve you? Because for whatever reason, that's what makes me feel the best.
mhm,
And we always have to remember, though, as helpers, and that's what a lot of us, you said, get that doctor, get that paper, get the paper rolling in, get the respect. But what does it
mhm,
really come down to? I mean, to get to that point, you have had to go through an awful lot. And it's because most of us want to help others.
mhm,
The thing that we have to remember, though, and took me an awful long time to learn, is the most important person we have to help is inside
mhm,
our skin.
mhm,
And what's the best way you could help that person? By accepting them for exactly who they are, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Maybe the
mhm,
good we want to hold on to, maybe some of the bad and the ugly we need to just forgive and move on, but accepting it for exactly who it is and what it is and what it's about. But yeah, that's what I would say, Paul. I would just feel like, now up until the moment that I discovered that, I don't know if that same reflection would have come through. But now, I'm now 8 years into my journey of self-discovery and emotional intelligence and growth and evolution and expansion. I
mhm,
think the 8-year-old me would be very, very proud of who I am today.
mhm,
But at the same time, I'm still a project that's, I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm
mhm,
changing. I mean, I'll change from this very conversation, just like you will.
mhm,
So we're
mhm,
never the same 1 minute to 1 minute, because we already just learned something in this last minute that now has changed. So if we
mhm,
look at ourselves as this dynamic being in all dimensions, it's a
mhm,
bit easier to accept ourselves.
mhm. Yeah. I always like to envision for myself is that and that I like to share with others is that if you take out all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas and the expectations, and you simply take yourself as an observer, where you can literally visualize and imagine yourself standing right in front of you, and you go all the way out from a higher perspective, bird's eye view. And then you see yourself as this individual that is ultimately learning, growing, healing, and figuring out life every single step of the way. And then you look around and you realize that everyone is doing the same thing. We are all, what is it? We're all walking each other home. I
That's
know you love that. I know
it.
that's a
That's it.
big
From us. We're all just walking each other home.
right. We're all just walking each other home. And so this also brings it a little bit deeper into that. At one point there was a story that was created that then became the narrative that we have in our, that we have in our minds, right? The thoughts that come through, the things that we tell ourselves. Like you said it's very real. Like if I were to, let's say 7 years ago and I had my actually, but I mean I'm speaking from this space, right? I wanted to say that if my like 6-year-old self met myself 7 years ago, I think she would still be proud because that in a way was true for me, right? Like I was maybe 8, 9 years ago, I'm working in at a mental health facility for teenagers in Malibu. I'm like living by the beach. My 6-year-old is like, "You're doing it. Look at you. You got an office with ocean view?" Right. And in that space I was experiencing depression, constant anxiety, like I was drinking, smoking cannabis like every single day, like avoiding, suppressing so much. And still It was fucking great
Mm.
in one way or another because I was experiencing something that I wanted and achieved it, right? And then now I bring it back to this point of my life and like my little girl is just like, "No fucking way. What? Are you for real? What?" Like she is literally so lit up. And that's part of the journey, right? Like maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the expression wouldn't have been the same of who we are and who we've become. And still, you've achieved desires and dreams. Now, whether they came from a conscious, more aware and integrated aspect of yourself, maybe not. Maybe they came more from the subconscious. Maybe they were part of this story of like desiring validation or like coming from a sense of unworthiness or out of fear and the decisions that we make out of fear and the spaces of contraction within ourselves. And still, you made shit happen. Is that not greatness?
Mhm.
So we hold that power within ourselves where the moment where it really begins to shift and become much more integrated in our truth is when we connect to that, like that emotional intelligence, to our bodies, and we connect to our nervous system, when we begin to not only become aware of the narratives that we hold in our mind and invite ourselves to write a new story, not just in our mind, but also to allow the body to feel and discover new pathways in a new story. Because that's really what happens. You know, oftentimes we think that it's the mind that goes back. Can't, you just can't compute. Same pattern. Keep going. Find solution. Don't die.
Yeah.
Everything. We need to know everything, right? What a beautiful thing that we have of a brain in our minds that helps us to create solutions and that helps us to move things forward in our lives. But truly, a big part of the nature of who we are as souls, as humans here on this earth, is the power of our own mystery. The mystery of like how will we choose to express this dream, this love, this passion that we hold inside? We'll have an idea, and these things that I've shared and prompted here with all of you. What were the things that have lit you up from the beginning of time? What were the things that you've been naturally passionate about? What are the things that you have always valued and cherished in your life? Right? These things, they bring us much closer to the foundation of how we will express or like who we are. But no, we will never be able to know. I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth in the next 10 seconds. I
Mhm.
don't know what's going to happen in the next minute. And I feel that that is also a big part of why we put up these walls and why we put up this clay on us. We want to protect ourselves from the unavoidable, inevitable mystery of our lives. And we are able to unfold in that mystery with much more trust when we can accept and acknowledge ourselves and know that no matter what it is that life brings through in the seasonal shifts, the ages of changes, we will be true. And that really supports our bodies, our minds, our spirits in continuing to be on this ever growing, ever evolving journey of evolution as a human being. Right? And so when we come deeper into our bodies, right? Like I was saying, is that the mind will say, the mind says no, but really the mind is responding to the memories that live in our body, right? Like we'll say, and then those are the things that then manifest in disease, the things that manifest in pain and injuries and ways that the body will speak and say, yo. Well, mine tells me yo sometimes. I don't know if your body yos you. Um, but like, hey, something's off here. Don't try to fix me. Can you simply listen to me?
Mhm.
Don't go and try and like do all of the things to fix this. I need you to come sit next to me and listen. And then we'll discover maybe it's not an ibuprofen or Tylenol that we need. Maybe it's a big cry and a conversation that needs to be had. But that requires a deep sense of surrender and a deep sense of safety that can only be found within ourselves, which is like that of, how Rumi says is that the path unveils as you walk it, right? And so oftentimes when we're in this journey of accepting ourselves, recognizing ourselves, acknowledging ourselves, becoming safe sanctuaries within ourselves to be able to do the thing, to be able to express ourselves, to be able to be more playful or more joyous or like own our fucking intellect, own our intelligence or brilliance. It's in doing that that we cultivate it. It's in crying, it's in having the conversation, it's in embracing, it's in speaking the truth that our body learns a new story. And that's why it's so important, right, for us to get to have these pure reflections. Right, as they say, it's like shame dies the moment you share in a safe
Mm.
space. And part of our healing and part of our journey of growing is choosing that for ourselves. And you still got to do it. The safety will not be reflected back to you unless you give vulnerability and courage a shot. And so perhaps what does that look like for you in this moment? Maybe as you're listening to this, like something already pops up, just like, oh yeah, I need to talk to my aunt. Oh, like I need to talk to this person, or maybe it's a conversation or something that's been beckoning within you. The thing is that people, we don't fear the unknown, actually. What I have found is what there's more fear around is the truth that has been beckoning within us that we neglect to know. Like we neglect as being known. So it's not that you don't know, you actually do know deep down inside, we just neglect it,
Hmm.
right? And so what is that? What is that in this moment for you as you contemplate? And it's not something that needs to come through right now. Like I said, maybe there's already something sparking up, coming through. And I invite you to be with that. Take 5, 10 minutes, journal around that. Like, damn, I realized I've been sitting with resentment around this or hurt about this. Or like I've had this dream knocking on the door of this thing I've been really wanting to do. I really have been wanting to do that like extended adventure. Hike that mountaintop. What is that? Lean into it. And know that you're already leaning into it, but becoming aware. And then from there, take it one step and one breath at a time. Definitely a breath at a time. We got to breathe. So, because when we breathe, it lets the body know that we are here, that we're connected, that it can trust us to literally begin to pave a new path and a new way forward.
Hmm. Now you can see why Paula is such an effective, and I failed to say, when I first met her, she described herself as an embodiment guide. And that's
Mm.
all coming through here in this last section. Um, Paula's taught me that, we store emotions, traumas in our physical body and even just the energy of moving. And she's taught me, many of you might have heard of me talking about shaking and moving through the day in between patients, right? To get the energy in the physical body going. But as you're speaking, Paula, thinking back to what that 8-year-old would think of me now, and I said, "Well, maybe before my journey, not so much," and I was reflecting on that as you were speaking, and what would have been necessary is that 18-year-old would have been like, "Well, I'm really proud of you," but would have also felt the need to put his arm around my shoulder and be like, "Maybe you shouldn't be so hard on yourself."
Yeah.
And that's not something I think that the 8-year-old would have to say as much now. But as you're talking and you're sort of prompting our audience to, to write and to feel and to take it one breath at a time, what I noticed in the moment that that 8-year-old popped out of my chest was that in order for it to pop out, it was almost like a pimple of pain had popped. It was about healing my way back to that moment of remembrance of who I am. And the only way, in my experience, that I could truly heal was to actually feel the pain. We are so afraid to feel the pain. So, what we choose to do is keep this shard of glass inside of us, deeply embedded and buried, so that when we move a certain way, have a certain thought, some type of reaction, it cuts us over and over and over again throughout our lives. But if we just take that brief moment to dig into that pain, to remember it, to process it, to accept it,
Mhm.
then what happens is that that shard of glass releases out, and now there's
Mhm.
space for love, space for self-acceptance, space for creativity. And so what I found in my own healing journey is that I had carried so many of these shards of glass, so many traumas and hurts and things that inherently we all do, especially if you're more of a sensitive type, which most clinicians are, quite honestly. Let's dig into that pain. Let's feel it. Let's talk. Let's write about it. Let's talk about it. Let's
Mhm.
remember what has happened so that we can
Mhm.
see it evaporate. And then so much easier to accept our greatness, accept ourselves. And um, so much
Mhm.
wisdom, so much power in your words, Paula, and even just in the way you deliver it, which is why you're just incredible. And
Mhm.
I'm just so grateful for this conversation. And quite honestly, for a lot of people, this might be the first time they're exposed to certain concepts, in regards to, well, I never thought of greatness as simply just accepting who I am, right? I mean, honestly, that seems like, whoa. And I always thought I was an accumulation of who I've been in the past up to this moment, almost like we're forced to, like a suitcase, to carry this identity and way of being without realizing that we have full freedom to be whoever we want in every single moment. And when you're a doctor and you're all these things and sometimes you really are leaning on that identity, but the truth is there might be something so much greater, so much more authentic that's willing to come out. And that's something that Paul and I worked on together in terms of my feeling like a burnt out clinician was just, hey, maybe just be more of like you, be a moment of it and be a bridge, right? Between
Mhm.
what we mostly think we're supposed to be
Mhm.
and what we truly are and can be. And the connecting thread is simply just being ourself, the superpower. So we've done a
Mhm.
lot of work together. I mean, we could do this all day. I mean, there's no doubt about um, Paula,
Yes.
as we're winding down here, just for the sake of your time, and we could easily do a 3-hour episode, but can you talk a little bit about kind of what you're up to these days? Like, I know you're back here stateside. I've known you to be living and moving about in different places. What are you offering right now? What's alive for you? Obviously, after listening to this, anyone in our audience is going to be curious. Where can we learn more about all the things that you're doing?
Yes. So one of the best ways to stay connected and to stay, just in the loop of everything I'm creating, it will be you can reach me on Instagram and you can find me at Paola Paola Ucelo UCELO_. And on there you'll be able to see the different offerings that I have. And in this specific iteration and phase of my life, I have a few focuses, and one of them is always going to be getting to guide individuals like yourself that are passionate, that are leaders, that are visionaries, that are really desiring to get to build their life, get to birth a legacy from a space that is true, which is ultimately what makes it sustainable long term, right? So for those of you that you're in a space where you know that what you desire to build is for the rest of your life and you desire it to live beyond your time here on this earth, I would love to get to be of support to you and really passionate about that. And also another way that I honor the sacredness of this life is through altar, which is um, what would we call altar? Altar is literally the dream of my heart, where, they say, like, they ask you those questions of, if you asked me 10 years ago that I would become this, I wouldn't, what would be like, I wouldn't believe you. But if you were to tell me 5 years old that I would be in my 30s designing clothes to adorn people, to be reminded of their beauty and the sacredness, I would be like, that checks out. It checks out. And so that's a really beautiful way. I have altar, and that you can find it on Instagram as altar of the sacred. And on there, I've just released just a mini collection. They're all natural fabrics. That's also a big part, like in the way that we honor ourselves, honor our greatness, honor our true nature by, just getting rid of polyester, spandex, nylons, and all of these toxic dyes and chemicals that, are also absorbed by our bodies that then also play a role in the way that we see ourselves and the way that we perceive life. And so altar, they are custom. There's also custom pieces. And I love that you mentioned the t-shirts that I made, because that was such a beginning. Like when I did walking
Mhm.
codes, I was like, yo, we need to drip ourselves and drape ourselves in goodness and codes of wisdom, of power, of liberation. And so altar is another way that I do that as well. And I also host an annual retreat for women. This one specifically this year is reclamation. So there's always a different theme that is flowing through, and also one-to-one rite of passages. And so these are the ways that I love to be of service, that I'm called to be of service, and that I'm honored and deeply grateful to get to serve individuals. And so mind, body, spirit, and the way you adorn yourself, I got you in
Mhm.
many ways.
And I honestly just in all sincerity, the investment I made in you being my embodiment guide, it would be impossible to express it or show it on the outside. But the changes that I was able to achieve internally in terms of deeper understanding and deeper levels of getting in touch with my authenticity and also my purpose, quite honestly, the methods that you use and the meditations and the breath and all the different things was so it was just like ignited so much in me. And so I highly recommend, if you're out there and you're maybe trying to figure it all out, Paula is an amazing resource for that. So many leaders that I know hold retreats that are for women, which is so beautiful. I always feel a little left out, but I get it. But if you are able to attend
Mm.
one of her retreats, amazing. The rite of passage I wasn't able to do from a time perspective, but I know you do these beautiful, days long types of one to one physical, spiritual engagements, and so you really offer so much. And of course, check out all that'll be linked up on the show notes. Her I see, are you still working with the website as well, paolaucelo.com, or is it mainly through?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so
So
good as well. And also on the, as you mentioned as well, for the, the retreats and the women and all of that. If you stay in touch with where this article is, as on unconsciousbeast.com, then that is also on there. Very similar work to the work that I do. That's, for the men as well. And so we'll be weaving more of that
yes,
together.
the weaving of threads and the weaving together, and this conversation included. So, Paula, what are your
Mhm.
parting words in terms of, the path to greatness? What would you
Yeah.
leave if someone was just checking in right now? if you could give them one statement of how to appreciate, understand, and recognize how available our greatness is, what
Mm.
would you say?
As you're listening to this, I want to encourage you to think about one person in your life that you love with your whole heart. The way that you care for them, the way that you love them, the way that you see them, the way that you desire the best for them. See the greatness that lives in your heart and your love. And in turn, see the greatness of who you are because you hold that love, that heart within yourself. Allow for that to expand your heart, to perhaps even move you. There's someone in your life that you love, you are great for your capacity to hold an open heart in a world and a society that calls us to close it. You are strong, you are resilient, you were born, made, and refined for greatness. May you remember this here and declare this now. Thank you.
Very, very beautiful. And I'll leave you all with this one concept as well, which is sometimes, especially as healers, as people who serve, we sometimes don't recognize that the world needs our greatness. The
Mhm,
world needs our authenticity. And
mhm,
because we're so attuned to helping others realize the greatest way you can help someone else is to allow your greatness, your authenticity, your purpose, your beauty, your light to shine. The world
mhm.
needs it, and there's a lot of people waiting for it. So don't hold back. Let it shine.
Let it crack, let it rip.
Paola Ucelo, thank you for episode number 2, dropping amazing wisdom, knowledge, and love for our
Mhm,
audience. And please check her out. Check out her altar of the sacred and
mhm,
her incredible creations there. And just know that this is someone that I couldn't recommend any higher in terms of getting involved with, engaging with. She's been a true game changer and change maker in my own life. And I thank you so much for that.
mm. Thank you, Brett. Blessings, everyone.
Mwah.